That is what Arsenal could be by the time Manchester City kick off against Chelsea on Sunday. 12 points. With how many games left? 7. And City have 2 games in hand. Yes, I know, but 12 points with 7 to play is a different conversation entirely. That is not a gap you overturn in a week. That is a gap that breaks teams mentally. But here is the thing. Here is what nobody is really sitting down and saying out loud. Arsenal have to beat Bournemouth first, and Bournemouth have not lost a Premier League game in 11 matches. Let that sit for a second. The team we are playing tomorrow has the longest active unbeaten run in the entire top flight. They have never, not once in their entire Premier League history, gone 12 games without losing. And we are the team standing between them and that record. Now, I know what you are thinking. It is Arsenal at the Emirates. We have won 7 home games in a row across all competitions. Bournemouth are 13th in the table. On paper, this should be comfortable, but football is not played on paper. And I have been an Arsenal fan long enough to know that the games that look easy on paper are sometimes the ones that age you the most. So let us actually talk about this properly, because there is a lot more going on here than the headlines are telling you. I'm Amelia, by the way. Arsenal fan, football obsessive, and if you are new here, this channel is where we go deeper than the surface. If you enjoy that, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps more than you think. But right now, let us get into it. Start with the obvious because it matters. Arsenal are top of the Premier League, 70 points from 31 games, 9 points clear of Manchester City right now, with City having played 1 game fewer. A win tomorrow makes it 12 before City even step onto the pitch on Sunday. And the race is very much alive. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. City still have those games in hand. They are not done. But the pressure, the psychological weight of chasing 12 points with 7 games left, that is significant. That changes how a squad breathes. This is Arsenal's moment to genuinely put a foot on City's throat. So yes, the stakes are high, but the story is not just the title race. The story is what is happening inside the Arsenal squad right now, because this team is walking into this match with more moving parts than people are acknowledging. Think about what the week looked like. Tuesday, Lisbon, Sporting CP in the Champions League quarter-final first leg, away from home, high pressure, and Arsenal won 1-0. Ugly? Maybe. Controlled? Absolutely. That is a massive result. A 1-0 lead going into the second leg at the Emirates next week puts Arsenal in the driving seat for a potential semi-final against Atletico Madrid. The double, Premier League and Champions League, is still very much alive. But here is the cost. The human cost. The squad cost. Bukayo Saka did not travel to Lisbon. He has been managing a fitness issue since the Carabao Cup final. Jurrien Timber did not travel either. Groin problem. Eberechi Eze was not there. Mikel Merino is injured. Piero Hincapié is injured. And then Martin Odegaard, who did start in Lisbon, came off the pitch mid-game. He went down off the ball, and the moment I saw that, my stomach dropped. I will be honest with you, because Odegaard going down when Eze is already out is not a small concern. That is our creative heartbeat. That is the player who makes everything tick in the final third. The good news is it does not appear serious. He is expected to be available tomorrow. But that word, appear, does a lot of work in football. You never really know until the team sheet drops. So walk into this game with that in mind. Arsenal are not at full strength. They are managing bodies. And they have to be, because the Sporting second leg is in 5 days. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because Arteta knows exactly what he's doing with this squad. Every decision tomorrow will have one eye on Tuesday. The rotation against Bournemouth is not just rotation, it is calculated risk management at the highest level. And the questions around the lineup are genuinely fascinating. Let me start with the one that I think is most significant, Leandro Trossard. Trossard has not scored a single goal in any competition in 2026. We are 4 months into the year, not 1 goal, not in the league, not in the cups, not in Europe, nothing. Now, I want to be fair to him because he has contributed in other ways. He has been involved in build-up play, he presses well, he gives Arteta options. But a left winger who cannot score in 4 months, in a title race, when we are asking for maximum output from everyone, that is a problem. That is a real problem. And what makes it worse is what we saw off the bench against Sporting. Gabriel Martinelli came on, sharp, electric, different energy entirely. And then, stoppage time. Martinelli and Kai Havertz combined to score the winner in a Champions League quarter-final, from two players who were not even starting. Tell me that is not a selection argument, because for me, it is settled. Martinelli starts tomorrow, and if Arteta does not start him after that, I genuinely want to understand the logic, because Trossard's form does not deserve a starting position right now. That is not harsh, that is just honest. And Havertz, Kai Havertz. I have gone back and forth on Havertz this season, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans have. But the version of Havertz we saw come off that bench in Lisbon, sharp movement, smart link-up, clinical finish. That is the player we need leading the line tomorrow. He starts. He has to. So already we are talking about a potential front three of Madueke, Odegaard and Martinelli behind Havertz. And honestly, that is a front four I like. I like the energy. I like the directness. I like what it does against a Bournemouth backline that has been leaking goals on the road all season. Wait, let me give you that stat because it is important. Bournemouth away from home. 29 goals conceded on the road this season. 29. That is the third worst in the division. So defensively, when they travel, they are vulnerable. Very vulnerable. And here is where Arsenal can really hurt them. Set pieces. Bournemouth have conceded 12 Premier League goals from dead ball situations this season. 12. That is the worst record in the league. And Arsenal, with Saliba, Gabriel, Havertz, Rice, all making runs into the box from set pieces, that is a direct weapon. That is not a coincidence. That is a tactical opportunity that Arteta's coaching staff will have prepared for all week. So if Arsenal score tomorrow, and I think they will, I would not be surprised at all if the first goal comes from a corner or a free kick. Watch for that. Now let me flip it, because this is where my nerves come in. Bournemouth in possession, or more accurately, Bournemouth out of possession, is one thing. But Bournemouth in transition, that is a completely different animal. Under Andoni Iraola, this team presses more aggressively than anyone else in the Premier League. More than anyone. They are ferocious. High energy, high intensity. They swarm you. They suffocate you in your own half. And when they win the ball back, they go. Immediately, no hesitation, quick, direct, vertical football. They have scored 7 goals this season from fast breaks alone. 7. That is the highest in the division. Now think about what that means against Arsenal's defensive shape. Arsenal play a high line, we know this. Arteta's teams always push the defensive block high to compress space. It works brilliantly when you have midfield control and the ball. But the moment you lose the ball in a high position and Bournemouth bring 3 or 4 players forward instantly, that space behind the back line is exposed. It is a real exposure, not a hypothetical one. And this is why the midfield setup tomorrow is so crucial. Rice and Zubimendi as the double pivot. That is the expected pairing, and I trust them. Rice is one of the best defensive midfielders in Europe right now. His ability to read transitions, to intercept, to cover ground is elite. Zubimendi alongside him brings composure and the ability to switch play. But here is my concern. The players in front of them, Madueke on the right, Martinelli on the left, are not the most disciplined defensively. They want to attack, they want to run. And if both wide players bomb forward at the same time and Arsenal lose the ball, Rice and Zubimendi are suddenly a 2 versus many situation against Bournemouth's counter. That is the tactical risk tomorrow. That is the genuine tactical risk. And the player who makes that risk bigger or smaller? Mosquera at right back. Christian Mosquera is expected to start tomorrow at right back, with Arteta managing Ben White's workload ahead of the Sporting second leg. Now Mosquera is a decent player, composed, technically solid, reads the game well, but he is not Ben White. White's ability to invert, to join midfield, to act almost as a third central midfielder when Arsenal are building. That is a unique quality that changes the entire shape. Without White, the right side of Arsenal's build-up looks slightly different, slightly less fluid. And Madueke on that right side will have to make better decisions about when to come inside and when to track back, because Mosquera is not going to cover the same ground White would. Did you notice that? The small changes in one position ripple through the entire system. That is what makes Arteta's setup so connected and so dependent on each player understanding their role precisely. Tell me if I'm wrong here, but I actually think Bournemouth's best chance of getting something tomorrow is not from open play against a static Arsenal defence. It is specifically from catching Arsenal in a disorganised shape after a high turnover, with Semenyo or Brooks running at Mosquera on the right side. Antoine Semenyo. Let us talk about him for a second. 9 goals, 3 assists, more shots than any other Bournemouth player, more touches in the opposition box than anyone in their squad. He is their engine, he is their danger. And he plays on the left wing, which means he will be running directly at Mosquera for much of this game. That is not a comfortable matchup, I want to be honest about that. And Junior Krupi leading the line for Bournemouth, 19 years old, 9 goals this season, is chasing something historic. If he scores tomorrow, he becomes the first teenager in 26 years to hit double figures in their debut Premier League season. The last one to do it was Robbie Keane for Coventry in 1999. Think about that, a 19-year-old with that kind of statistical season coming to the Emirates on the biggest day of their season. Players like that do not care about the occasion. Sometimes that makes them more dangerous. Right, let us talk about Saka and Timber, because this is the conversation everyone is having, and I want to give you my honest take. Both could be involved tomorrow. Both could come off the bench. Arteta said before the Sporting game that he was hopeful they would be ready for this weekend if everything went well. And the fact that neither of them travelled to Lisbon was almost certainly deliberate. Rest them, protect them, have them fresh for the Premier League run-in. But here is what I think, and this is purely my read of Arteta's thinking. He will not start either of them tomorrow. I do not believe it. Not with the Sporting's second leg 5 days away. Not with the Premier League seemingly under control at 9 points clear. The risk of a setback, a muscular tweak, a recurrence of Saka's issue, a knock on Timber's groin is too high when the reward of starting them against a 13th placed Bournemouth does not justify it. They will be on the bench, available if we need them in the second half, ready to give 20 or 25 minutes if the game is in the right place, but they will not start. And honestly, if Martinelli and Havertz perform the way they did off the bench in Lisbon, Arteta will not need them. Now, drop a comment below, and I genuinely want to know this. Do you start Saka tomorrow, or do you protect him for the UCL second leg? Because I know this fan base is split on it, and there is no perfectly right answer. Both sides have a case. Let me now step back and look at the bigger picture for a moment, because I think this game, this specific game, tells us something important about where Arsenal are as a club right now. Cast your mind back to October, to November, the conversations we were having, whether Arteta had lost the dressing room, whether the signings had worked, whether this squad had the depth to compete on 4 fronts. Those conversations felt very real at the time. And then quietly, without the big flashy performances, without the dominant displays, Arsenal just started winning. And winning. And winning again. They beat Tottenham 4-1. They beat Chelsea 2-1 at home. They went to Brighton 1-0. They beat Everton 2-0. They went to Lisbon and beat Sporting 1-0 in a Champions League quarter-final. 7 wins from the last 10 across all competitions. And the 2 losses in that run? The Carabao Cup final against City, a separate competition, and the FA Cup quarter-final to Southampton. A shock, yes, but again, a separate cup. In the Premier League, they have not lost since the Aston Villa defeat. This team is winning ugly, grinding, doing what title-winning teams do. And that is actually a sign of maturity, a sign of a squad that has figured out how to win without being at their absolute best. The double is not guaranteed. Nothing is. But right now, Arsenal are in a position that a year ago we would have dreamed of. Premier League leaders by 9 points. Champions League quarter-final first leg won away from home. A squad that is managing bodies intelligently through a brutal schedule. This is what it feels like when a project comes together. Now here is the part I want to end on, because it is the thing that sits in the back of my mind no matter how optimistic I feel. Bournemouth have drawn 5 in a row. 5. Every single game in their last 5 has ended all square, and they are coming to the Emirates, not to win necessarily, but to make it difficult, to press, to disrupt, to hit on the counter, to make Arsenal work for every single inch. And the last time Arsenal played a team that came here to defend and disrupt, sometimes it gets messy, sometimes it stays goalless longer than it should, and when it does, that is when the anxiety creeps in. That is when the Emirates gets twitchy. That is when individual quality, a moment of brilliance from Saka off the bench, a set-piece delivery, a Havertz run, has to settle it. I think Arsenal win this. I genuinely do. Win probability is 69% for Arsenal. The data agrees. But I do not think it is comfortable. I think Bournemouth make it uncomfortable for at least an hour. I think their press causes problems in the first 20 minutes. I think Semenyo gives Mosquera a difficult afternoon. And then I think Arsenal find a way. Through a set piece. Through a moment of individual quality. Through Martinelli doing something that Trossard simply has not been capable of doing in months. My prediction? Arsenal 2, Bournemouth 0. A clean sheet matters for goal difference, and 2 goals from 2 different sources. I am going for a set-piece header and a Havertz finish. But more than the scoreline, what I am watching for is whether this squad can protect their energy for Tuesday. That is the real test tomorrow. Win the game, manage the bodies, keep everyone healthy. Because Sporting CP at the Emirates in a Champions League semi-final, almost, is the prize waiting on the other side of this. If Arsenal do that tomorrow, if they win clean and bring Saka and Timber through unscathed, the next 2 weeks could define this entire season. And I cannot wait. If you are watching this before kickoff, drop your score prediction in the comments right now. I am reading every single one. And if you want to be here for the post-match reaction, because trust me, there will be a lot to say, make sure you are subscribed. The bell as well if you actually want to see it when it drops. This is the business end of the season. Every game matters, every decision matters, and we are going to talk through every single one of them. Come on, Arsenal.